Today's guest is a poet and the founder of Free Poets Collective. He is also host and founder at the Listening Tree Talk Show and the Goodwill Ambassador of the Woman Scream Festival. Not one to rest on his laurels, though. He is also the host and creator of CCIS, which stands for Connecticut Cryptid Investigative Society. So without further ado, please welcome the multi-talented Colin Haskins to the Claws Corner. Well, I know you said Black Rock State Park was a 4.9 in the Squatchometer. So that Meredith's right up there with that.
It is right up there with that. We've done, according to the camera person here, 3 videos we've done just on Meriden. We're still developing something. I'll share with you. And you heard it here. This is a CCIS innovation I'm sharing with you.
I love it. So
I know the whole world's going to hear about it, so don't tell anybody.
Secret's safe with me.
I think it's I'm being told not. Don't say it. I have to say it.
Don't listen. Don't listen to the voices in your head. Say it.
We have innovated what we call the Meriden Triangle, of where we think this stuff will happen is going to be the tower, the Hubbard, the Castle Craig, Black Pond, and Sleeping Giant. Comprise the area in between those 3 points is the Meriden Triangle that we have sort of designated that, as the Meriden Triangle. Very creepy things happen right there. There used to be an asylum for people with mental health issues. Back then it would have been just, the asylum, Undercliff Asylum over there. And it was so, and Nicholas Robert will love this, it was so haunted they had to demolish the place. And there's nothing left but just remnants of the foundation there. But it was so bad that you're given all of the paranormal stuff that happens on that mountain as it is, all the sadness. Could you pick a worse place, really? And it just doesn't exist anymore. I think you can access parts of it from the Target parking lot.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Now I was going to ask you about that. The Meriden Triangle. Say, forget the Bermuda Triangle. Forget the Bridgewater Triangle. The Meriden Triangle. That's where all the action's happening.
That's CCIS original. We shared with you just for this podcast. We were gonna save it for some of our own publications and release the info then. But hey, you know what? You're awesome, and there it is.
A Claws Corner exclusive. Thank you very much from Colin Haskins of CCIS. I love it. Thank you very much. Going back to the Black Dog, I want to talk about the House of the Black Dog. Where is that?
Oh, wow. So when we went for our investigation, of course, there's a road that you can go by. If you enter the park, you go to the far end past the entrance, all the way back past the playground, you can just drive right up to it, right? Well, we didn't know that. I thought it was closed. Yep. Mr. I've lived there all these years. So it was pretty hot like today. And we're going to do this easy climb, so we're going to start over by the duck ponds. There's some trails that lead up, and you can just hike up there. You can hike up or drive up, which I suggest if you're going to hike up, make sure you have a lot of water with you, which we didn't. I wasn't prepared for this, which I usually am prepared for this. So as you climb up, getting towards the summit of where Castle Craig will be, if you do the trail up there, you do the difficult trail, as you're approaching that summit, off to your left is this rectangular gap in the rock. Of course, now it's trip rock. We talk about rock falling away. Well, it tends to fall away in these sort of oval-shaped brick-sized pieces, right? They tend to be rounded and not much bigger than like a loaf of bread or something. But of course, that's not a given rule, but they tend to be smaller, let's say. And where the rock falls away, it tends to just be jagged. Like you could just rappel up that. No, you could just climb up that like somebody would do. That'd be very popular for somebody to want to climb that today. I don't recommend it, given the history. Not a good idea. It's not going to end good for you. But as you approach the summit from the trail off to your left, as you're rounding it's clear as day. It's just where the cliff suddenly just jets out, just goes straight up there. There is this rectangular recess. And we were so dehydrated and frustrated with ourselves for getting caught off guard, which we rarely do when we hike, but we did, that we decided we just want to get to the top of this mountain, get this investigation done, and figure out if we're going to be able to survive the way back. And that was where the camera person said, that's the house of the black dog. As soon as she said that, I was like, wow, that really is the house of the black dog. So if you wanted to, let's say, access that, what I suggest you do is make sure you have a cooler full of nice cold water, drive up to the summit, and do the trail down from the parking lot. And as soon as you see where the bottom of the cliff is, I mean, it's just the geology is so unusual that you won't miss it or mistake it. There is this very large rectangular recess, and it's dark in there. And we unfortunately didn't go in. We were probably a little dehydrated. When we got to the top, we realized that we were talking to people I couldn't fact drive up. Camera person still not talking to me. And that I had a big jug of frozen water in my backpack, so we were prepared. And that was supposed to melt, so you had nice cold water when you needed a drink. Yeah. One of the tricks I like to do: throw a frozen jug of water in the backpack.
Yeah,
so you kind of lug a cooler with you. So that's where it is. It's it would be very simple to access that. It would make for some really good EVPs. We caught some EVPs on our investigation up there. We heard somebody falling off the cliffs. You go back to our investigations, we replayed it. It's pretty convincing. It's pretty compelling evidence. It's not our, this is more of like Nicholas Robert Grossman's area.
Yeah.
And some of the people, the paranormal people that I met there, they would love it there for that. But we did get that stuff. We have it recorded.
Yeah. Well, that's why I love your YouTube channel. As I mentioned, I went through a lot of videos. I love the investigations you go on. I love that you're able to show different things, where it is. And I think you should come out with a book. Do you have anything published yet in all these stories in all the different places?
I have 7 poetry books to my name that I published. And I did one, as I probably mentioned briefly, that I did for the New Britain Museum of American Art. And yes, we want to publish a book all about, specifically Connecticut cryptids. And that's, we have some other stuff that I'm not going to reveal till the book is out. I didn't give you all my gems. I gave you that. The camera person's threatening my life if I reveal everything.
Tell the camera person I thought we were friends. Come on.
Yeah, I thought you were. She's
tough.
She's not feeling it right now. Me either. I'm in big trouble for the Meriden Triangle thing.
There.
But we have some theories. One of them is the industrialization of the East Coast. One of the Bigfoot things. I'll talk about that. That doesn't give much away. One of our theories is that as Western man, white man moved into the Americas, of course, Connecticut wasn't the first place, but where we really started to do some industrializing and some colonization is right here in New England on the East Coast. And, our theories are that our Squatches and our Ganasquas got driven away. They just distanced themselves. So that pushed them further north, south, and west of us to sort of escape from that encroaching, industry and pollution and all the wonderful things that our culture does to deforestation and, contamination and all that. And that's why you don't have as many Bigfoot sightings here in New England as you do in the West Coast, but it is our theory that you certainly had them in the same abundance like the Atlantic salmon. You can draw a real correlation there. And so you got more salmon on the West Coast, and salmon on the East Coast is the only one we have is the Atlantic salmon. And it's almost completely extinct, except for the Penobscot River in Maine. And you could say, well, okay, so a large hominid would sort of parallel all animals, the mountain lion, all animals would parallel that same sort of, habitat loss and escape.
Yeah, that's a shame. But I wonder in another way, I wonder if this will cause, because an example would be with all the deforestation and we're building more, and it seems like bears are becoming more and more common, and also they're becoming more and more acclimated with humans, so they're not afraid of us as much as they used to be in 70s, 80s. I wonder if we're going to see a lot more Bigfoot and more cryptid sightings now that they're being forced out of the woods, and also I wonder if they'll become more and more, you know, used to humans in a way, like not so much of afraid and taking off and hiding all the time. I wonder if that will be another effect of what's going on.
I think so. I'm glad you brought up bears. Bears are a large mammal and that needs a substantial forage base.
Mm-hmm.
And as you see, so they're cohabitating with squatches and other large moose and other large animals. So if you're seeing a return of black bear and mountain lion, apex predators to an environment, then what you're seeing is the environment returning to a healthier state, a larger forage base. If we could get the Atlantic salmon back, that would be awesome. And the only thing you gotta do is bust the dams. The dams are terrible. What minimal amount of electricity you get out of them is just not even close to the amount of damage it's causing to the environment. And people have more cameras with them. They're out
Yes.
there more, and it seems to be hiking just in general just seems to be more popular than when you and I were younger. People did it,
Mm-hmm.
but not the kind of way you do it today. I think people are, we don't give ourselves enough credit. We say, oh, we're always on our phones, but we're always on our phones out there too. We have the means to record these things now. And if you're seeing black bears, you're going to see squatches. They are very similar, albeit the black bear hibernates and primates don't, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's interesting. I know I was going to ask you about that because I did hear you say in one of your videos that wherever there's a lot of bear activity, you'll see a lot of Bigfoot activity. So,
Yeah, and wherever you see MDC property, yeah.
you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but I want to dig deeper into this because I find, as I do with everything you brought up so far, fascinating. But Mantis Man,
I
that
love
thing
Mantis.
really.
I
Let's talk
love
about that.
Mantis Man.
Yeah.
Mantis Man is a sort of a newcomer. Um, and the first I heard of Mantis Man was that some guy was fishing in New Jersey, of all places. First of all, I didn't even know that there were fish in New Jersey, let alone anybody that would actually try to pursue them as a hobby and fish for them. And I'm kidding, right? I know New Jersey, that's too bad. You know what, New Jersey, you got the Pine Barrens and you got the Jersey Devil, so you got a pretty cool cryptid right there. We're gonna give you kudos. But so Mantis Man was first reported in this river in New Jersey, and this guy was trout fishing, which again I find fascinating that there might have been a trout. And
Maybe he has 3 eyes, but they're still trout.
he's still there. Let's see if I got a tick on me. I'm sorry. I really am. I'm like this. Don't be a tick.
The government's already after you. They have those
Uh,
ticks.
I'm not worried. Maybe the MDC someday. I might get a letter from
Well, you
them.
know what? I'm kind of afraid that it might be the camera woman who's doing this too because of what you said earlier on the podcast.
She's right there.
Maybe she's sticking the ticks on you to shut you up.
Yeah, she's saving them. She's saving them from Sessions Woods. Well, one of them lived for 30 years in a laboratory with no food and water. It's crazy, a tick.
Wow. I told you
Um,
I hate those things.
I
Even
know.
before I heard your theory about that, I just said they are the worst creature alive.
Lyme disease is nothing. In Connecticut, we have cases of Powassan disease, and you can just die from that. Period.
Yeah.
Right? That just kills you.
Yeah.
So yeah, so don't get that. I
No.
go through a crazy what I call the built-in tachometer. If I so much as feel a little tingle or something, I check it out, and that's been the best thing for me. But let's get back to Mantis Man.
Mantis Man
is so cool. So the New Jersey Mantis Man was reported as about 6.5 feet tall, brownish green, which when you're a mantis, you're not given a whole lot of color choices. It's either going to be a brownish green or green, unless you get into some of those cool ones that look like flowers in the forest, the rainforest. So Mantis Man is, this guy's fishing. He's in a river. This thing sort of appears, right? It sort of fades into sort of visible, physicality. So it seems to have the ability to sort of vanish at will, but it sort of manifested visibly. And it was doing its sort of Mantis Man thing. A lot of cryptids, they don't, at first, dogmen especially. Now, you would think being a big dog with a big nose, you would sort of be aware, you'd smell these things. But dogmen seem to be caught off guard quite a bit. Not so much Squatch, but dogmen, people are like, it was there doing this thing and didn't notice. Well, that's what this Mantis Man was doing. It was sort of just doing what a large 6-foot praying mantis will do, waiting for some woman to come bite his head off, So it's an 8-foot woman going to bite his head off. What's going to happen to me tonight? So I'll be another case of headless cryptozoologist. I'm sorry, Richard. I gotta have fun with it.
Oh no, I want you to have fun. I love this, and I love the fact that you have a sense of humor about it, and you take it seriously. Great.
You have to. So this Mantis Man appears to this guy. Once this Mantis Man sort of gets aware that somebody's looking at me, because he's probably like, well, what the heck is the fisherman doing here? There's not even a fish in this river. But so Mantis Man becomes aware of this person, this fisherman. And then it takes on this very hostile stance and it opens up its sort of winged areas, So let's say let's just say anatomically a praying mantis, like people report on the UFOs, right? The guys that are sort of in charge of the little gray guys are usually praying mantis types, about the same size. So here's a nice cryptid overlap. This Mantis Man sees this guy, opens up his freaking wings, shows him his chest, looks at him, like come at me, like all full Rambo,
Yeah.
he's like flexing what insect muscles he's got. And this guy was terrified, and so this thing watching, he's shocked, and he's sort of this thing. This standoff is happening. Mantis Man turns invisible, and he can hear him splashing away, and this guy's left traumatized in New Jersey with nobody believing him. Our report was really, so we got a direct report of a Mantis Man in New London, of course. There's some crazy stuff happening. Go to New London, man, there's some crazy stuff happening there. This Mantis Man was seen jumping over like a hedge, and it was at getting dark, summertime, I forget the exact date, and it sort of was scurrying along the road. It was described as it had just recently rained and there was a little water going to a sewer, and the thing stopped and repeated the same sort of, I'm a little 3-foot, I'm a little mini Mantis Man, mini me Mantis Man. But he displayed the same kind of I'll kick your ass, sort of behavior. And, then turned and didn't disappear, but then scurried down into the sewer, down into the drain pipes. And drain pipes and crazy animals go hand in hand way back since the beginning of sewers, just before that, probably just dank rivers coming out of caves and stuff. There's a lot going on with sewers, but yeah, Mantis Man. He's one of my absolute favorite cryptids. Totally cool.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites too. It sounds like Mantis Man has a Napoleon complex.
Until he gets 6.5 feet taller, yeah. And then he doesn't have much to worry about, except his girlfriend.
Well, I think
that's not going to end well for him.
I think Hart should write a song called Mantis Man. Forget Magic Man. That Mantis Man would be the bigger hit, I think.
I absolutely listen. Oh, so I'm glad you brought that up. But you hobnob with some real celebrities, but I got to tell you, Sasquatch is a big time celebrity.
Oh yeah,
He's famous.
that's when I want to get a picture. I haven't got a picture with Bigfoot yet, but I'm working on it.
You get that, man. You got the selfie of selfies. When I saw you with Lita Ford, and yeah, that
Oh
was
yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'm like, I got to up the game on my celebrities, but other than Bigfoot, the rest of them are just kind of obscure.
Well, you know what though? Listen, we'll help each other out. I'll have you meet my celebrity friends, and then you can have me meet your celebrity friends like Bigfoot, Kansas Man,
And
Wild Man, all the fun guys.
oh, absolutely. Oh, I'll tell you the Winston Wildman. As I'm doing research, we have volumes of stuff from the libraries and the historical society on the Winston Wildman. And one of the craziest things that we have is that the Winston Wildman is married to the Witch of Winchester. I cannot find a whole lot of stuff on that, but Winchester is just a couple towns over from
Oh, yeah.
Winston. And I was like, wow, I got to follow up on this. So there's some stuff that we haven't followed up on. I don't even know anything about the Witch of Winchester.
No, I never even heard of her. Now that story you mentioned earlier about the Winstead Wild Man, what year was that? When the guy?
That would have been in the 1840s,
Okay.
if I remember correctly. So, before automobiles. So
Yeah.
foot traffic and paths with horses and carts would have been the way to go back then.
Yeah. But you're saying, according to the legend or the story, that he spoke English.
Yeah, which way to town?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, and so now see that's a funny overlap because you asked me about Neanderthals,
Yep.
which would have absolutely the ability to have a language. We don't know.
Yeah.
And Bigfoot, which some of the Winston Wildman accounts are just very Bigfoot. There's this big guy, and they seem to be really into the blueberries of the area. They're just when the blueberries are ripe, you got squatch all over the place. And so those reports are varied. They're like Neanderthal, wild man that can communicate, or just outright, ape of the forest. It sort of covers all three.
Yeah, that's interesting. Now I want to talk about a story that was so big that it made it to Channel 30 News. It was the West Hartford Reservoir.
Yes, that's the one I talk about, the lake lady that gave the evidence to the MDC, Tourist Information Center.
Okay.
And I'm absolutely going to go there with cameras rolling, with copies of the photographs, and ask to see them. And when they deny all knowledge of it, and I'll be like, well, what I want to see are copies of these photographs that I have right here, submitted on this date by this person. And, it was on the news. So I was just wondering if I could see them. I know you're saying they don't exist, but how do you explain this body of evidence in our own videos that say they do? And I can absolutely guarantee you that they're going to deny the crap out of this. They're not going to produce the photographs, and they're going to try to make me the crazy one. And they're too late. I'm so crazy that, they could never catch up.
They're so far behind. They should have started about 25 years ago.
Yeah. You're still Patterson Giblin already,
What's his? I forgot what his first name is, but is it Lazarus? He worked at Area 51, and he's the one that exposed everything about UFOs, and they basically erased his identity.
Bob Lazar. Oh, that poor guy. Yeah.
Bob Lazar. That's it. Lazar. So like that's going to happen to you, and hopefully it doesn't. But there's no.
Yeah.
Colin Haskins.
Ankle bracelet before. Give me an ankle bracelet before, and it goes off before I hit MDC property or something like that. Thankfully, I work for myself, so I'd have to fire myself, Richard. So the chances of losing my job are slim.
Yeah.
But it could happen. I mean, I might get fed up with my own nonsense and be like, "That's enough. I want to bring my. Can we step into the office and have a talk?"
Yeah.
I saw some of the videos and. I can't have you in these people's houses. You're going to take plaster footprints of the owner's feet and stuff.
But you know what the funny thing is I bet you if something ever did happen like that, most of the people that you're probably working with are like, I agree with everything you're saying, or I saw this, but they're probably too afraid to say anything. So your bosses, even though this hasn't happened, hopefully it never does, but your boss is thinking, oh my God, they're going to think you're a weirdo. They're probably like, thank God there's somebody out there like you, because I wanted to say this for years, but I was afraid to. Like you always said, you're the crazy lady, the crazy Bigfoot lady that isn't afraid to tell people the story. So just unfortunately, I think some people don't give other people credit enough to be able to, one, take it or believe it, or just like, or worried about like, oh my God, Colin's out of his mind. It's like, no,
Oh
he's
yeah.
not. So
That should be apparently obvious anyway within just a couple of minutes of talking to me.
well, that's for a lot of other reasons. Nothing to do with Bigfoot though, or cryptids.
But no, that's interesting because my last job when I was employed by somebody, I never mention this stuff. If you see the videos, you see it, but I just don't bring it up.
Yeah.
When I'm at work, I'm at work. If you ask me about it, I'm gonna blab on till the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So my boss just randomly, he just starts talking about an encounter that his daughter had of a dog with a lion's mane. And I forget where exactly, it was down there, West Haven area.
Wow.
And, he just randomly one day asked me, like, he just looked at me, we stopped work. And he says, so my daughter saw this thing and doesn't know what it is. Well, would you know anything about that? And I'm thinking to myself, well, you must know then. You must have seen the videos and you must feel comfortable enough to sort of ask me what I thought. And I said, the idea of a dog with a very large furry mane, I have absolutely no problem with that. Of all the animals that are out there that tend to sort of evolve into cryptids or get creepy, the canines seem to have the most ability to do that.
Mm-hmm.
They will transform a lot. They will evolve into some crazy things readily.
Well, that's another perfect segue. You're really good at this. I like interviewing you.
I'm having fun here, Richard. So
I'm loving
that's
it.
the way. Yeah, I'm here all night. I'll be here next week. You can come see me until management kicks me out.
I'll probably still be interviewing you, but at that time, so it's gonna be longer than the Jerry Lewis telethon.
It is with less money.
Yeah, exactly. We're into day 7 of the Colin Haskins Rich series.
Oh yeah. I'll actually evolve into a Bigfoot. I won't shave her and just like get all squatchy on you.
It's gonna be like the end of The Howling, where
which way to town? Yeah, go the other way.
Now, the reason I thought that was a great segue is because you mentioned evolving, and I did see the video on this, and you mentioned it a little bit, but I want to go dig a little deeper into the shape shifting.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about what's the difference between shapeshifters and cryptids.
Well, so after our Meriden encounter, where I was like, what are all these? We couldn't exactly find a solid black butterfly. You can just go on Google Images and there's black swallowtails. There's a whole bunch of black butterflies, but none solid black. That's when the idea sort of started to jumble around in this Sasquatch head up here, that you're dealing with something that can change its shape at will. So you're dealing with something that possibly isn't physical. So thinking about this shape shifting, it really bothered me because, as I mentioned several times, we like to keep it into biology. So I'm like, so shape shifting in nature, does this happen? And of course, I'm like, well, it happens all the time. It happens with caterpillars shape shifting into butterflies, moths. It happens with reptiles. Frogs are born like little tadpoles, and then these legs pop out, and then the tail disappears. That's just sucked in. And then it goes from completely aquatic to, amphibious. And fish, the flounder, crazy shape shifting. Its eye moves on top of its head and it flattens out one side of its body until it's a flat fish looking up with the eyes on top of one side of its head. It literally moves the eye around over a period of what can only be described as evolution.
Yeah.
And I could go insects of all types, mosquitoes, and I mean, it's in your face once you start to think about it. So like after a couple minutes of speculating, like this happens in nature all the time. Biology shapeshifts all the freaking time. It's something that is just part of life here on the planet. So to say, to think, well, that can't happen. Well, nature shows you it can and most certainly does happen a lot. Animals, some fish can, depending on water temperature or the need, can change their sex.
And I was going to ask you about that because I think frogs are one of those animals, right?
It can happen in them. It tends to happen with aquatic creatures a little bit more than the terrestrial creatures.
Yeah, why is that?
I can't completely wrap my head around that. I just don't know. Water's a weird thing. Cryptids and water are just tied together. So just like that whole missing 411 thing, it's wow, water's strange. So I don't know yet. There's a lot that I'm still trying to sort through, my own theories.
Yeah. Well, why and how are animals shape shifting due to climate change?
Oh wow, well that would be well, climate change, temperature can do a lot. I mean, look at so this year you want a good example. The sockeye salmon runs on the west coast are the largest ever recorded, in recorded history. And then some of the places just slightly upstream from them have depleted runs almost to where they're non-existent. And that's all temperature related. You are getting, I'm a diver, so I'm an advanced open water scuba diver. And on one of my last dives for my training, we went to Rhode Island in about this time of year. I think it might have been September. And we were down pretty deep, 130 feet. We are gathering, we were there as Mystic Marine Aquarium was there, gathering tropical fish that follow the currents up in the summer. And then it gets so cold that the fish don't have, they're cold blooded, so they don't have the strength and mobility or the temperature, the muscle manipulation to swim back, and they end up dying here. And these local aquariums will go gather up their tropical fish right off the coast of Connecticut and Rhode Island. And that's all temperature related. Where I'm from in Maine, there were never any striped bass up there. Now that's a major fisheries. It all used to be the mackerel that were coming back, and other fish. Pollock would follow the mackerel, and they follow the herring. Well, now there's striped bass up there, and the Connecticut River right here in Connecticut. They shut the herring, the river herring, the alewife and shad fisheries down because of depleted resources in the fisheries and an increase in striper activity. So all of that can be tied into these animals moving into terrain, warm animals moving up north because now it's the same temperature they're accustomed to. And the animals that are here are going to want to go move even further north. So Connecticut's always had a stripers fishery, but only in my recent years, in my lifetime, are you able to catch them in Lubec where I'm from. And they're abundant now. There's no other way to explain it. If nature is displaying the truth of this climate change to you, then, don't listen to the politicians that say it doesn't exist or isn't having an effect. It's right here. It's right here in Connecticut. You don't have the shad runs, and this is after they destroyed the Enfield Dam. But you have more striper. Striper like the water a little bit warmer. And now they're all the way up in Maine. This not historically a place where they were.
I didn't even think about that because I wonder if birds that flew south for the winter, I wonder if they're going to be just staying here all year round now because it's warm until at least the end of December, most recently in the last couple of years. And then January have like maybe a snowstorm here and there. But compared to how it was in the 60s, 70s, even 80s, we really don't have winters anymore. It's basically
Yes.
spring, no, summer, and a little bit of cold. Like a little bit of cold, maybe like a couple snowstorms here and there. Like where I grew up in Wolcott, we had a pond. We used to ice skate and play hockey, go sledding. I can't remember the last time that pond was actually frozen throughout the whole year. Back in the 70s when I was little, we used to be ice skating before Thanksgiving. Now, throughout the whole year, it's probably maybe like an inch or two thick, then it gets warm, it melts, gets 3 or 4 inches thick, it melts. So yeah, it's just I laugh because of this is another whole conversation we can get into for hours, but these politicians, and there was one example, I can't remember what his name is, but he actually brought a snowball and said, oh, this proves climate or global warming isn't real. It's like, it's called climate change, asshole. It's
Yeah.
like people don't know the difference. It just gets me angry. But yeah, you can tell. That's why I saw that video on how shape-shifting is climate change is affecting shape-shifting. I thought that was very interesting. And I liked how these animals can adapt to what's going on in their
But
surroundings.
they
So
have no
right
choice.
away. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if it's survival,
Yep.
what are they gonna do? Just cease to exist, not reproduce? Biology doesn't understand that it's there to reproduce. And so these animals, like Jeff Goldblum said, life finds a way.
It finds a way to Jurassic Park. Yep.
Walk it. So walk it in your Scoville Reservoir. You have
Yeah.
bowfin there in that pond. What
Mm-hmm.
the heck are they doing there, and how the heck did they get there? Bowfin is a South Asian fish. Bowfin. It's
Yeah.
related to snakeheads.
Wow. I
I
didn't
think they're
realize that.
cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of interesting things. Now you mentioned cryptids in the water. Let's talk about sea serpents and monsters. Any sightings in Connecticut?
Oh yes. I talked about Seville Reservoir. One of our first videos is of some very large looking creatures appeared to be occupying Seville Reservoir. One of our videos, we were there, but we videotaped this stuff, and they look like manatees without sort of appendages, just sort of oval shapes, sort of like a whale without a tail.
But do you have this on video?
Yeah.
I gotta check it out. That one I didn't see.
Civility. One of the very first episodes, when we first started, we did a lot of stuff with the aquatic animals. We went down to the Connecticut River Museum where there's a whole display of the Connecticut sea serpents that were seen in the 18. A lot of stuff happened in the 1800s. So a lot of this wildlife was still there, and there was increased population of Westerners who then would encounter these things. And of course, as time went on, and I talked about the industrialization, you get less and less animals, period.
Yeah.
Not just cryptids, not just sea serpents, just in general. It's only recently now we're seeing bobcats and the return of the mountain lion, and hopefully there was one salmon red. Atlantic salmon nests are called reds. There was one red reported in the Farmington River. So there's just great news. We bring the salmon back. Everything else comes with it. All the eagles. I mean, animals that are here, but no longer have that forage base to depend on.
Yeah. Now, question for you. I want your opinion on this because I hear so many stories about the Loch Ness monster. Somebody supposedly admitted that it was his child's toy. What's your opinion on that? Do you think there really is a monster at Loch Ness? And if so, what do you think it is?
So the toy, the surgeon's photograph from the 30s, I mean, is absolutely 100% proven to be a hoax.
Yeah.
And so what happens is, why would somebody make a hoax? Usually it's because there's a history of something already there. Those reports of the Loch Ness monster, and of course, Loch Lorry has the harpies, so a very similar type creature, just up several miles away from Loch Ness. It hardly gets mentioned. Yeah, I don't see why there can't be undiscovered animals in lakes, rivers, and streams. Loch Ness, like Lake Champlain, used to be completely open to the ocean. Lake Champlain through the St. Lawrence waterway went right into the ocean, not far from where we're talking about Maine. spills out right there. And you're going to have historically anadromous fish and salmon, and these creatures would have followed the anadromous fish that go from the ocean to freshwater and back to the ocean again. Anytime you have a forage base like salmon or herring, you're going to have things like striped bass. You're going to have things, maybe some amphibious holdover animals, plesiosaur, zobladon, those types of things. My personal favorite is Tanystropheus, which I believe is in Lake Champlain.
What's that?
It's a lake monster. It was a dinosaur that sort of walked around with didn't have fins. It had little stubby legs, and so you see the Lake Champlain footage is just a sort of this knob and walking around thing, and that's as the creatures are walking around the ground, hitting deep spots and coming back up. Of course, what you see, the historical representations of Loch Ness would be more of a plesiosaur, which is an air breathing things, and Tanystropheus and Zobladon were also air breathing. So there is sort of the difficult rock, if you will, to get around, is that, yeah, there are these sightings, but biologically there should be a lot more sightings of an air, like an orca. You got an orca swimming around Scoville Reservoir in Walcott, you're gonna know about it.
Oh yeah.
You're gonna need a pot of orcas swimming around, blowing through their blowholes and carrying on and splashing like they do. It's gonna be in the newspapers. People are gonna be down there. It's gonna be a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised because I'm not sure if they still do this. At one time, they had a camera on Loch Ness for 24 hours. It was just on there all the time. You could go online and watch it. I think I did for a little while. I'm not sure if they're still doing that, but I'm surprised that never picked anything up, or if it did, I didn't hear about it.
It did. Nessie Cam. I've been on Nessie Cam.
Okay.
I don't know if it's still going. Like you said, it was sort of a fad. They caught a triangular fin shaped thing on Nessie Cam.
Okay.
But the lakes on the MDC property, Scoville Reservoir, they have cameras pinned on the whole lake.
Yeah.
If you could somehow get into that, it's supposed to, it's a taxpayer funded thing. It obviously deals with our water and their waterways and their buffers, their watersheds that they fence off miles at a time. A lot of their stuff is on camera. And it'd be real interesting if we could crack that egg, start them talking about what's in that compensating reservoir. You might just get a lot more information than you bargained for. I think, me personally, that's where the good stuff is.
Yeah.
Get 900 miles of no trespassing. That's a lot of land. That's 900 square miles. That's not acres. And even in acres, that's a lot. And you're talking about some of the nicest, most beautiful waterways and woodlands in Connecticut and Massachusetts, and it's fenced off and no trespassing. That's where the good stuff's happening. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I have to go undercover. That's what we're doing. Maybe it will turn into NCIS.
I'll bring you right up to the border. Wink, wink. You won't go past there.
Nothing to see here. Keep moving.
Yeah, you could call it that. We find a lot of structures, a lot of Bigfoot structures leading right into the heart of their property. Because we have theories that let's say you snap a tree, you're a Bigfoot. You can move that tree 360 degrees like a clock.
Yeah.
Okay? You could say maybe the bend, the high end taper shows you a course of direction. You can really be pretty accurate. And if you follow them for any length of time, barring that you want to drift, try to stay straight, you're going to bump into something else just like it. A lot of those bends go right into their property, right into the heart of it.
So are you saying that Bigfoots actually build houses or things to live in, or do they roam around more?
Oh, they build structures.
They build structures? Okay.
They're called Bigfoot structures. They build nests. They build a lot of markers along paths to try to communicate with us stupid humans. Our cousins, our stupid cousins, like my cousins in Maine,
like cousin Tubby.
Cousin Tubby. Like that, they're trying to communicate in a way that, like big bends, twisted trees that are, this thick that no human could possibly. The bend is up there 11 feet tall. I've seen trees woven in between trees,
Wow.
X's, teepee structures, stone piles, undoubtedly some form of communication. What I'm narrowing it down to is these bent trees pointing towards the direction of, I can only say, a course of travel or to hunting grounds.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it would make no sense. Oh, and I think it's an attempt to keep us on our human trails and not to vary off the trails. And let me tell you something, off trail is where the cool stuff happens.
Yeah.
Don't get lost like I do all the time.
Oh, me too. As I told you, I only mentioned that one story. I could tell you a story where I went to the Indian Council Caves in Barkhamsted. It took the state police, the local police, and the DEP to find me and 4 other people. We were hiking from 3 p.m. and they finally found us at 9 p.m. So yeah, I have a habit of getting lost, and for the most part, I love it because, like you said, I find all these interesting things, and that's where all the cool stuff is. So, getting to that, when you find these structures, how deep in the woods are they?
Okay, like in Litchfield.
From the frenetic mind of author Rich Sear. 5 terrifying short stories, now available in one collection. Confessions of a Frenetic Mind. 5 tales of blood-curdling terror, available on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
All of a sudden I hear, brim, brim.
What's a diaphragm again?
Ha! We caught one.
They're supposed to be weird.
Oh, yeah, no. If you say so.
I've always wanted to be in a movie.
Waiting around for